Hey, in this episode, we're going to talk about sharing the gospel. Some people might ask, like, when is a good time to share the gospel? And some might say, boy, it's hard to find a good time. And someone else might say, every moment is a good time. And so either way, we rely on the leading of the Holy Spirit for that divine opportunity to share the good news. You just never know what happens when you scatter the seeds of the gospel in someone's life. And so today we're going to talk about at every opportunity, let's share the good news. And so I've invited Danston to teach us a little bit on how to share the gospel, on just techniques that he uses and insights that he has. And so you're going to be blessed as you hear from him.
Now, having said that, in today's video, I want to highlight the importance of having the face-to-face conversations with people. Now, I do agree with some of you that you might be saying, oh, we have podcasts, we got social media, we have a lot of different means of how we can proclaim the gospel, but it's nothing like, really talking to a person on a face-to-face level. So today, I want to share some of the points with you on how you can get started right away, sharing the gospel or reaching out to new people. The first key I want to share with you is about being a person of relationships. Now, let's say that you want to reach your neighborhood, that God has laid in your heart to reach out to people in your neighborhood. And let's say if you happen to take a drive during the morning, just circling around your neighborhood, and you come across some people who require your assistance. Let's say somebody just moved into the neighborhood and they need some assistance in moving their furniture into their homes. And by you just stopping by and helping them, that will establish some form of connection and relationship with people. And the next time when they see you, they might even invite you home. And that's how you can influence people. Now think about various different ways that you can think about how you can help your community, your neighborhood, that somebody somewhere, that God might provide an opportunity for you to connect. I remember at one time where I was driving by my neighborhood and I came across somebody who wanted a drive to their home. And I was pretty hesitant at the beginning because I didn't know who the person was. But I learned that person had lost his keys of his car and he was trying to reach his wife and he wanted to get home. And so I offered him the lift, and it was a 15-minute drive. And I remember in the 15 minutes, I asked God, I said, God, maybe this person is coming to my car and for some reason. And I want you to tell me, give me some words so that I can testify about you to him. And then I remember, asking him a few questions about his life and how what he's doing. And we ended up talking about the gospel and just how in 15 minutes, he heard the gospel and he ended up taking my contact details and said he wants to be in touch with me.
Such a powerful teaching. Thank you so much. And it's true. There are times where we need to be proactive and really step out in faith. And there's other times where God just like in an unplanned moment opens the door and we need to be ready in those moments. And so Thad's going to tell us a story from his experience when he shared the gospel, or at least entered into a gospel conversation. And so you're going to be blessed by this as well. So, hey, Thad, over to you.
I want to talk about how, because this is really maybe the meat, the big question that people have. Like, I'm willing to do it, but how do I do it? And in my personal experience, I'm going to talk about two categories: planned and unplanned opportunities. A lot of unplanned opportunities come up, the same as with anything, right? Like if I asked you parents, how do you teach your kids important character, life lessons? Usually, you're not sketching it out beforehand. You don't have a template to follow. It just happens. You're driving on the road, or you're sitting at the breakfast table, and a conversation happens. And sometimes that's how, in my experience, we get to share the gospel. If we're looking for it, if we're praying about it, if we're ready for it, God will bring us opportunities. Like last week, a guy brought food over to the house. We're still in quarantine here in Columbia. Can't go out for a lot of things. And so I ordered food in. Guy shows up, young guy, maybe 20 years old, earrings and some tattoos, gets off his motorcycle, he's handing me the groceries, and I don't know if you've had this happen, but I felt this compelling sense of need to share the good message with him. Like, I just felt how much God loved this guy, And so I'm praying like, Lord, what do I say to this guy? I don't know what to say. And I noticed he had a tattoo of like a pinky promise on his forearm. It's not a common thing here in Colombia, so I asked about it. And the guy people love to talk about their tattoos, by the way. It's a great tip if you need an ice-breaking tip. Ask people about their tattoos. But this guy just opens up and he said, yeah, I used to live in the States. I was trying to play Major League Baseball. I was on a farm team and I was 13 years old. My life was going great. And then I injured my shoulder, and get this, he said, and my dreams crumbled. And I understood what the Lord had to say to this guy. I looked at him, I said, what's your name? He said, Eliezer. I said, Eliezer, listen, I'm a pastor. And I want to tell you something that I really sense in my heart right now, and it's this. The moment your dreams crumbled, God's dreams stayed intact for your life. Like, God's dreams are not in any way limited by a bum's shoulder. He has huge purpose for your life. Do you know that, Eliezer? And the cool thing is, a conversation ensued. Got to pray with the guy tonight. This night, Eliezer is getting on a phone call with us, and looking forward to just building relationship with him. Why do I say that? Because you can't plan that stuff. You know, your interactions are going to look differently than that. But I think if we're aware, if we're praying, if we're open, and if we allow our heart to feel compelled to share the good news, God will open up unplanned opportunities. Now, I want to pivot and talk about planned opportunities, because sometimes you have the luxury with a person or a group of people to kind of steer the conversation over time. And I want to share what is working for me, which is a combination of the 3 circles and Discovery Bible Study, specifically focused on the story of Ruth. Ruth is an awesome story. It's only 4 chapters. It's super relatable. It's really timeless. People can identify. They can see themselves in the story. And it matches the 3 circles awesomely. So what I did, what I like to do is I start the first session, the first week, kind of meet once a week, right? In the first week, we read the first chapter. We talk about it. The first chapter is really about pain and brokenness, which parallels the first circle, right? Naomi's life has fallen apart. She fled famine only to lose her husband and her sons. She's asked her daughters-in-law to leave. She doesn't have any future for them. Famously says, call me Mara. My life is bitter at the end of the chapter. And people can identify with this. It's a story of brokenness, like the first circle. We live in a broken world, and no matter how hard we try, whether we try to drown it out or escape it through success or the corporate ladder, or try to get out of it through relationships, or we try to silence it with drugs or whatever it is, or alcohol or anything, like, there's no amount of effort that can get us out of this broken world. We're always slingshotted back into this place of brokenness. That's what happens in the first chapter of Ruth. But then the second week, we talk about encountering the first glimpses of hope. Because when they go back, now Ruth has joined Naomi, and they've gone back to Bethlehem. They found the Lord has brought plentiful harvest, and there's food to spare, and they've met Boaz, and he's kind, and they're still on the outside, but they're seeing like glimpses of goodness, which is exactly what the second circle is about. We see in our world glimpses of God's good intentions for us and for this world, whether it's the laugh of a baby or a beautiful sunset or the color of a butterfly's wings. Like, there are undeniably good things that point to a good God, and we live in this brokenness, but we can see this goodness, and we understand that we got to this brokenness by walking away from God's goodness. But then the 3rd and 4th chapters of Ruth, I would use in the 3rd session. And these are amazing, powerful chapters where, through the redemptive act of Boaz, who covers Ruth symbolically with the edge of his cloak, and then marries her, and then they have this child who becomes the ancestor of King David, and then of Jesus the Messiah. There is this redemption where broken people are brought into plenty, into abundance, into a place of safety and hope. And the connection here is, this is the 3rd circle. Jesus is our Redeemer. He is our path out of brokenness and back to abundance. And so this has worked really well. We could talk a long time about it, but I think you can kind of connect the dots. And just a few weeks ago, I got to lead a new person through these 3 steps. And at the end of the 3 weeks, she said, I want to be redeemed like Ruth and Naomi were redeemed. And so it was such a joy. I got to see the good message change her life, and it blessed my life, and I hope that you get to have the same privilege. May God bless you.
That wraps up this episode, and I hope you were encouraged that at every opportunity, we should be a people who are ready to share the gospel. And we look for open doors, we look for opportunities. We might plan it out and say, yeah, this is the time I'm going to do that, or and at the same time, we can look for times where it's just like it's an unplanned moment, a divine moment, and we step out in faith. And when you have a little courage, when you step out in faith, you never know what God does. And we trust Him as we plant the seeds. He's the one who produces the growth. Isn't that good news? It's good news. Hey, if you've been encouraged by this podcast, hey, if you've been encouraged by this material, I encourage you to hit subscribe, share it with someone. We just want to support you and hey, if you've been encouraged by this material, I just want to invite. Hey, if you've been encouraged by this in any way, hit subscribe, share it with someone. We're committed to seeing the good news of Jesus Christ shared with all people everywhere. We're believing that God wants to see disciples who make disciples and disciples who join Jesus on His mission in this world. God bless.